Good day everyone, welcome once again to my YouTube channel, Great Check, and once again this is Jerry, and we have a new topic for this video, and it's all about the seal of God and the mark of the beast. We turn our attention to probably the most solemn topic in the Bible. The warning about worshiping the beast and receiving his mark is the most serious warning God sends to the world at end time. We find that warning in Revelation chapter 14, verses 6 to 10. One of a threefold warning that God sends the world at end time. Let's read Revelation chapter 14, and we read again these three warning messages God sends the world at end time. In Revelation chapter 14, verses 6 to 7, we'll start with the first angel's message. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. The first angel, saying with a loud voice, Fear God, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of water. The first angel alerts the world that the judgment has come. We will study that one in the next video about when the judgment really started. And we have to study that one so that we could understand also this message of the first angel. And alright, the second angel's message now, verse 8. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because you made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So we'll study about Babylon and its fall in a future video also. So, but this time we'll just have to focus on our study in Revelation chapter 14, and it's all about the seal of God and the mark of the beast. Now, the third angel's message in verses 9 and 10, it says here that, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of God. So those who worship the beast and receive his mark will receive the wrath of God and end up in hellfire. So what is the wrath of God? Revelation chapter 15 said the wrath of God is the 7 last plagues. What is that? Revelation chapter 15 verse 1, it says that the wrath of God is the 7 last plagues. That's the most serious warning God sends the world. And we notice that the issue is worship. The first angel tells us to worship the Creator. The third angel warns us not to worship the beast. And the highest form of worship is obedience. Revelation chapter 14 verse 12 says that here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Revelation presents two groups. One group worships the Creator, and the other group worships the beast. And ultimately the whole world will be in one of those two groups. The Bible reveals that most of the world will receive the mark of the beast. Let's notice that from Revelation chapter 13 verses 6 and 8, beginning with verse 16, it says here, And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. So he causes all to receive the mark. Let's read verse 8 now. All the world worships the beast, and evidently the mark of the beast has to deal with worship. Verse 3 says, All the world wondered after the beast. So all the world wonders after him. Why? Since God has given such a solemn warning not to worship the beast, and why would the whole world do it anyway? There are two reasons. The first reason is deception. Most of the world is deceived about end-time events. And second reason is pressure. Pressure. There will be tremendous pressure at end time for people to receive this mark. Let's note the pressure from Revelation chapter 13 verses 16 and 17. The Bible says that if you don't have the mark, you will not be able to buy or sell. We refer to that as economic boycott, and we use economic boycott to pressure individuals or nations into compliance with what we think is right. That will be used at the end time. If you don't have the mark, you can't buy or sell. Now that's pressure. If that doesn't force the whole world to receive this mark, the pressure will get even greater. Let's read Revelation chapter 13 verse 15 now. And what is that? That is a death decree. Ultimately, at end time, those that refused the mark of the beast will be threatened with death. Can you see the picture that will bring to bear upon the whole world at end time? We can see pressure coming from two sides. God says, if you worship the beast and receive his mark, I am going to pour out my wrath on you, the 7 last plagues, and you will go to hellfire. The beast says, if you don't receive my mark, you won't be able to buy or sell, and will kill you. Can you see the pressure? That pressure will bring the whole world to the greatest crisis of the ages, and we're on the brink of that crisis. We'll see that in this video. But the question is, what is the mark of the beast? What the mark of the beast is and how it will be enforced are two separate issues. Today we will identify what the mark of the beast is. Only time will show us how it will be enforced. The mark of the beast is actually a counterfeit to the seal of God. Did you know that God has a mark? It's called a seal. Let's read that from Revelation chapter 7 verses 2 and 3. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried out with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. So the seal of God goes in the forehead, but the mark of the beast can also go in the forehead. The one is a sign of love and loyalty to God. The other is a sign of loyalty to the beast power. And these two marks can go in the forehead. They are in opposition, in competition. The mark of the beast is a counterfeit to the seal of God. What is God's seal? If you can know what God's seal is, it will help us to understand what the mark of the beast is. As we already learned, Revelation is full of symbolisms. God is not going to come down with some divine branding iron and seal the saints in their foreheads. Will the seal of God be an implant in the saints' foreheads? No. So we know that the mark of the beast will also not be an implant. This whole idea of computer chips in people's heads or hands is simply a diversion. Will the whole world be willing to receive a microchip in their foreheads or hands? I don't think so. Think about this. What do you do in your forehead? That's where you make moral decisions. That's where our belief system is located, the frontal lobe. The seal of God represents a decision. I will obey God. Even if I can't buy or sell, even if they kill me, I've made a decision to obey God. And that decision goes in the forehead. But the mark of the beast can also go in the forehead. The difference is the mark of the beast can also go in the hand. God's seal cannot go in the hand. Here is an interesting verse. Exodus 13 verse 9. It says, and it shall be for a sign unto you upon your hand. In other words, that you do God's law. And for a memorial between thine eyes. What is between your eyes? Forehead. And that the Lord's law may be in your mouth. The forehead represents belief, and hand represents outward compliance. The seal of God only goes in the forehead. It does not go in the hand. God will not accept mere outward compliance. Our obedience must come from the heart, but the mark of the beast can also go in the hand. There will be people at end time who do not believe in the beast or his mark, but they are willing to comply so they can buy and sell. They received the mark in the hand. So mark this. The seal of God and the mark of the beast are not literal marks or implants in our foreheads or hands. Rather, they represent decisions and choices that we make. We'll see that as we go on. God's seal stands in contrast to the beast mark. So what is the seal of God? That will help us to understand what the mark of the beast is. First of all, what is a seal? A seal authenticates a document. Every official document has the official seal, and every law has the official seal as well. A law with no seal is not binding, and every lawyer also has his or her official seal, and the seal has three elements: the name of the lawgiver, his title or position, and his territory. Every seal has those three things. For example, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte of the Republic of the Philippines. His seal would give his name. First, Rodrigo Roa Duterte. His position would be what? President. And his territory would be the Republic of the Philippines. Every seal has those three elements. Question: is God's seal connected with his legal document, his law? Every law must have an official seal. Before we answer that question, let's answer another question. What gives a person the authority to have a seal? For example, Rodrigo Roa Duterte. What gives him the authority to sign laws into action? His position. What is his position? He is the President of the Philippines. The office of President gives him the authority to sign laws into action. Since God has a seal, what is God's position that gives him authority over the whole world? He is the Creator. All through the Bible, God points us to this fact as the reason why he has authority. Here's an example. Revelation chapter 4 verse 11. Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you have created all things, and for your pleasure they are and were created. Why is God worthy of our worship? Because he created everything. Then Revelation chapter 14 verse 7 says, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. The reason why God claims authority in the world is because he created everything, and we can find many texts in the Bible where God points us to the fact that he is the Creator as the reason why he has authority in the world. Well, question. After God created the world in 6 days, what sign did he set up to remind us that he is the Creator? We'll read the answer from Genesis chapter 2 verses 1 to 3. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day he ended his work which he had made, and rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he has rested from all his work which God created and made. So the Sabbath, the seventh day of the week, is a memorial of creation. The Sabbath is a memorial in time. It has nothing to do with the Jew. Rather, it is to remind us that God has authority in the world as Creator. Every week, the Sabbath travels around the world. It comes to every country, every city as a reminder that God is the only one worthy of our worship. When we choose to keep the Sabbath holy, we are showing our community and the universe that we acknowledge God as the only one worthy of our worship, that we are loyal to God, obedient to God. But let's come back to the question. Is God's seal connected with his legal document, his law? The answer is yes. God's seal is in the heart of His law. It has the three elements of a seal: the name, the title, and the territory. Which one of the 10 commandments do you think contains God's seal? The fourth one, of course. Let's go read it from Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 to 11. As we read this, see if you can spot the three elements of the seal. Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 to 11 says, Did you spot the three elements? What was the name of the lawgiver? The Lord. In Isaiah chapter 42 verse 8, God says that the Lord is His name. What is God's position? He is the Creator. He made everything. And what was His territory? Heaven and earth. There you have the seal of God. It's as if God signs His name to His law. Without the fourth commandment, any God could say, "This is my law." For example, Buddha could say, "This is my law. Thou shalt not have any other gods before Buddha. Thou shalt not take the name of Buddha in vain," etc. But when you have the fourth commandment, God says, "I am the only God who meets this description, the Creator." So we found the seal of God is the Sabbath. The Sabbath shows God's authority, has the three elements of the seal, and is connected to His law. Question: what happens when you take a seal out of the law? You're effectively nullifying the law. Can you understand now why some preachers say that we don't need to keep the 10 commandments? They ripped the seal right out of the center of God's law, thereby effectively nullifying it. That is why there is lawlessness in Christian nations of Europe and America. It is a statistical fact that in some Christian communities or countries, crime is higher than in non-Christian countries. You can see why. They have taken the seal, the Sabbath, out of God's law, and by doing so, they have basically nullified God's law. Something else interesting about the Sabbath. The word Sabbath comes from the Hebrew word Shabbath. That word in the original Hebrew literally means the sign or seal of the Father or of God. Wow, I thought that was interesting. Sabbath actually means the seal of God. So now we know what God's seal is. It is the Sabbath. We find the Sabbath in the heart of the law, but where else does God want to put that seal? In our foreheads. He wants us to make a decision to keep the Sabbath. And I hope you've made that decision. Mark this, a Spirit-filled Christian that's keeping the 7-day Sabbath truly has the seal of God. Notice I said Spirit-filled. You can keep the Sabbath like the Jews without being Spirit-filled. But when you love God and you keep the Sabbath out of love for Him, that is a Spirit-filled Christian. But let's come back to the question. What about the mark of the beast? Does the mark of the beast also have something to do with God's law? Yes. Let's read again the warning about the mark from Revelation chapter 14, verse 9. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand," and then, of course, verse 10 tells us the result. So God warns the world, don't worship the beast, don't receive his mark. And then in contrast to those who receive the mark, we have another group, the saints. Revelation chapter 14 verse 12 says, "Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus." Evidently, those who receive the mark of the beast are not doing what? They are not keeping what? They are not keeping the commandments. Because if they were keeping the commandments, they would be among the saints. Obviously, then, those who keep all the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus will not worship the beast or receive his mark at end time. We can see in this video that both the seal of God and the mark of the beast have have to do with God's law, and they are both have to do with loyalty too. But let's come back to the question, what really is the mark of the beast? Before we can correctly identify what the mark of the beast is, we first have to know who the beast is, right? Here's a photograph of a popular Christian novel entitled The Mark. Subtitle is The Beast Rules the World. Well, who is the beast? The reason why most Christians today have no idea what the mark of the beast is that they have no idea who the beast is. If you don't even know who the beast is, how can I know? If I don't even know who the beast is, how can I know if I have his mark? So let's go to Revelation chapter 13 and we'll review the description of this Antichrist beast. Verse 1 says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast," not a computer or a barcode or a credit card, a beast rise up out of the sea. Continue on through verse 3. So, who or what is this Antichrist beast? Well, we've already learned that a beast in prophecy represents a kingdom. Daniel chapter 7 verse 23 said, "Thus he said unto me, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth." So in Bible prophecy, our beast represents a kingdom or a nation. We recognize immediately then that the beast of Revelation chapter 13 must symbolize a kingdom. The Antichrist, as we saw, was represented in Daniel chapter 7 by the little horn, and the little horn represents a little kingdom. In Revelation chapter 13, we have a beast, but the world worship these beasts, so it would have to be a religious kingdom. When you put these two together, you have a little religious kingdom. And Revelation chapter 13 indicates that this kingdom would be based in Rome. Of course, that's pretty obvious. There's only one little religious kingdom based in Rome, and that's the Vatican. Again, we're not talking about Catholics. We're identifying a kingdom. We found 11 clues about this kingdom. Let's review them now. Among the 10, there in Western Europe, that fits the Vatican, came up after 476. It was 538 AD when the Vatican came to power. A little horn or a little kingdom. The Vatican is the world's smallest independent nation. It would uproot 3. Those were the Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. They were uprooted because they refused to acknowledge the supremacy of the Bishop of Rome. It would have a human leader. That, of course, is the Pope. It would be different from all the other kingdoms in Western Europe. Vatican is the only kingdom in Europe today where the church dictates the policies of the state. It would blaspheme God. We got 2 definitions of blasphemy. John 10:33, blasphemy is when a man makes himself God on earth. We saw that the Pope claims to be God on earth. And Luke 5:21, blasphemy is when a man claims the power to forgive sin. Both the Pope and the priest claim they have the power to forgive us of our sins. By the way, who do we go to for forgiveness? Jesus. There are many Catholics who do that, confess their sins directly to Jesus. And then number 8 is it would be a persecuting power. We saw that the Church of Rome itself estimates that it put over 50 million to death during the Dark Ages. Then number 9, changed God's law. We saw that the 4th commandment has been changed, the 2nd commandment has been removed, and the 10th commandment has been divided. Then number 8, it would be a persecuting power. We saw that the church, and I want to enforce this point again. 666 is not the mark of the beast. Rather, 666 is the number of the beast. We saw that in Revelation chapter 13, verse 17. What is the number of his name? 666. We'll find out in a moment what the mark is, but the number is 666. Here again we read, "Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Notice that it's a number of a man, not a computer or an implant or a barcode or a credit card, but it is also number of the beast. And verse 17 said it was the number of his name. When you put those three together, the number of his name, the number of a man, and the number of the beast, we saw that it would have to be the number of the name of the man at the head of the beast power. Is there a man at the head of the beast power? Yes, the Pope. We watched the last video prior to this video that he has an official name, Vicarius Filii, which means vicar or substitute for the Son of God. And the Bible said in verse 18 that we had to count the number. So to arrive at 666, we must do some counting. When we studied the Antichrist and 666, we counted up the number of the popes. And you remember in Latin, certain letters have certain numerical values. So if you add up his name, it adds up to 666, just as prophecy said. Here again we have the 12 identifying marks of the Antichrist. All 12 identifying marks points unquestioningly to the Vatican Kingdom, not talking about Catholics, not talking about Catholic Christians. So now that we know who the beast is, it's not hard to figure out what his mark is. What is the mark of the beast? We already saw that the Sabbath is God's mark, the sign of his authority. So the mark of the beast must be the sign of the beast's or the papacy's authority. What is it? Let's see if we can find it. Let's go back to our list of clues now. Point 9 on our list of identifying clues said the Antichrist power would change God's law. We got that from Daniel chapter 7 verse 25, where the Bible said that the little horn, symbol of the Antichrist, would think to change times and laws. It's interesting that in the original language it actually reads this way: shall think to change time in the law. Question: where in God's law do you have time mentioned? There's only one commandment that deals with time, and that's the fourth commandment, where God said, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The seventh day is the Sabbath. So here we have holy time, the seventh day, which is the Sabbath. And the Bible told us that the Antichrist power would think to change time in God's law. That would be attacking the seal in God's law. Mark this. Satan has always attacked the Sabbath because it is the seal in God's law. He knows that if he can remove the seal from God's law, he will effectively nullify it. But here's the literal fulfillment of the prophecy of Daniel chapter 7 verse 25. This is from the Convert's Catechism of Catholic Doctrine, page 50. Question: which is the Sabbath day? Answer: Saturday is the Sabbath day. Question: why do we observe Sunday instead of Sabbath? Here is the Roman Catholic answer: because the Catholic Church transferred solemnity from Saturday to Sunday. There, friends, you have the fulfillment of the prophecy of Daniel chapter 7 verse 25. Prophecy said the Antichrist power would think to change time in the law, and the Church of Rome said, yes, we did it. Here's another statement from a Catholic magazine. The Catholic Church designates Sunday as the day of corporate worship and gets full credit or blame for the change God's law. The Bible prophesied that the Antichrist system would think to change time in the law. Here's another statement from a Catholic magazine. Perhaps the boldest thing, the most revolutionary change the church ever did happen in the first century the holy day, the Sabbath, was changed not from any direction noted in the scriptures, but from the church sense of its own power. People who think that the scriptures should be the sole authority should logically become Seventh-day Adventists and keep Saturday holy. So this Catholic priest admits that Sunday has no higher authority than the tradition of men. Here's a statement from another Catholic priest, Father Enright. I have repeatedly offered $1,000 to anyone who can prove to me from the Bible alone that I am bound to keep Sunday holy. There is no such law in the Bible. It is a law of the Holy Catholic Church alone. The Bible says, remember that you keep holy the Sabbath day. The Catholic Church says, no. By my divine power, I abolish the Sabbath day and command you to keep holy the first day of the week. And lo, the entire civilized world bows down in reverent obedience to the commandment of the Holy Catholic Church. There you have the literal fulfillment of Revelation chapter 13, verse 3. The Bible said the whole world would follow the beast, and these Catholic priests said that the whole world is bowing reverently to the command of the Catholic Church. Let me show you how Protestants actually agree that Sunday is not biblical. Here is a statement from Dr. Edward T. Hiscox, author of the original Baptist Manual. He said, there was and is a commandment to keep holy the Sabbath day, but the Sabbath day was not Sunday. It will be said, however, that with some show of triumph that the Sabbath was transferred from seventh to the first day of the week. Where can the record of such a transaction be found? Not in the New Testament. Absolutely not. Of course, I quite well know that Sunday did come into use in early Christian history as a religious day, as we learned from the Christian fathers and other sources. But what a pity that it comes branded with the mark of paganism and christened with the name of Sun God, when adopted and sanctioned by the papal apostasy and bequeathed as a secret legacy to Protestantism. So this great Baptist theologian has basically summarized what I've taught you. Sunday came to us from paganism and when was given to the Protestant world through the papacy. I want you to notice an interesting word here, mark of paganism. So again, what specifically is the mark of the beast? The mark of the beast must be the sign of the Roman Church authority. What is it? You might have already guessed it, but here's their answer. This is an official statement, the Catholic record. It says, there is an official statement, the Catholic record. It says, of course, the Catholic Church claims that the change was her act, and the act is a mark of her ecclesiastical power and authority in religious matters. So, they say the act of changing Sabbath to Sunday is their mark of authority. That's amazing. So what is the mark of the beast? First of all, what is the beast? We found out that the beast of Revelation chapter 13 is a symbol of the Vatican Kingdom. And the Vatican says the act of changing Sabbath to Sunday is our mark. Now, some of you are probably thinking, does that mean if I keep Sunday holy, I have the mark of the beast? Question, does anyone have the mark of the beast today? No. No one will receive the mark of the beast until religious legislation is passed enforcing Sunday observance. Now, some people say, well, I'll wait till the law is passed enforcing Sunday observance and then I'll make my decision which day to keep. What? If you don't have the moral courage today to obey God, What makes you think you'll have the courage then when the pressure is turned on? If we make our decision now to obey God, then when the pressure is brought upon us, God will give us the strength to continue doing what we know is right. However, if we insist on keeping Sunday, even though we know it's not biblical, when the pressure comes upon us, it will be easy to continue doing what we are already used to. But question, will religious legislation one day be passed enforcing Sunday observance? The answer is yes. Let's take a look at the news. This is from ABC News, July 2008, under the headings Sunday shopping banned in Croatia. Christian shops to be closed on Sundays as of January 1 in concession to the Catholic Church. I thought that was pretty amazing. Here is another example. This in America. Back in February, CBN News, a leading news in America, had an article entitled 30 Years of Sunday Morning, A History of Sunday. And it was a very interesting article. In the article, it was telling about a book written by author Judith Solivitz. Writer Judith Solivitz, in her upcoming book, The Sabbath World. In a world of 24/7 commerce, she is pushing a return to laws that would shut down businesses one day a week. Which brings us back to the Puritans of the 1830s. Their measures may now seem extreme. Sunday observance was required on pain of death. In Puritan America, if you did not keep Sunday holy, you could lose your life. But what if they were actually onto something? So this author is saying maybe it would to go back to the days of Puritans. Can you see it coming in this video? Here's a more recent example. December 3, 2009. German court enforces day of rest. The subheading says Germany's highest court strictly enforces day of rest, bans Sunday shopping. So Germany is also trying to enforce Sunday observance. One more example. This is Hungary. The headlines say, a Bazarnap nep Zak Bazarnap. Translated, Sunday is not just a shopping day. You see, in Hungarian, Bazarnap means market day or shopping day. And the Christian parties supported by the Catholic Church would like to introduce banning shopping on Sundays from this fall onward. We can see it coming. The Sunday law will soon be upon us. Here is an interesting news article entitled EU or European Union urged to press for work-free Sundays. Among other things, the article said the following. The conference was organized by the European Sunday Alliance with the aim of raising awareness of the importance of decent working hours and work-free Sundays. Some 65 civil society organizations, trade unions, and churches were represented at the event of the European Economic and Social Committee, or EESC, in Brussels. It will not be long before Sunday observance will be legislated. Now they have what's called the European Sunday Alliance, an alliance of some 65 plus organizations with the purpose of making Sunday a day off. Some years ago, Pope John Paul II wrote a letter to the world calling for Sunday legislation. Here's the letter. Dies Domini, Latin for Lord's Day, back in 1998. Do you know who probably wrote that letter? A cardinal by the name of Joseph Ratzinger. Pope John Paul II signed it, and Ratzinger has a new name, Pope Benedict XVI. Here's what the letter says. Therefore, also in the particular circumstances of our own time, Christians will naturally strive to ensure that civil legislation respects their duty to keep Sunday holy. Civil legislation, what is that? That's laws enforcing Sunday observance. that's lost in forcing Sunday observance. The issue is more than what day we keep. The issue is who will we obey, Jesus Christ or Antichrist, the commandments of God or the commandments of man. The day we keep holy indicates who we are being loyal to. The whole world will soon face the tests we talked about in this video, including you. Implants? You'll never get the whole world to receive implants. But when Sunday observance is enforced by law, then those who choose to keep Sunday because they believe in it receive the mark in their forehead. Those who keep Sunday not because they believe in it, but rather just so they can buy or sell, they receive the mark in the hand. By the way, I might mention in this video, the mark of the beast issue will go beyond the mere enforcement of Sunday as a day of rest and worship. Laws will eventually be made that will require you to break the Sabbath day. The devil knows that if you do not work on Sunday, you are not breaking any commandment. However, if you work on the Sabbath, you are breaking the commandments. God is calling us today to keep the Sabbath holy. He says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. Exodus 20 verse 8. That's God's call to us. At a time when the whole world is trampling on His holy day, God is calling His people at end time to keep the Sabbath, a sign of loyalty to our Creator. And Jesus tells us, if you love me, do what? Keep my commandments. There will be people at end time, probably not a lot of people, but there will be people at end time who love Jesus enough to keep His commandments. All of them, not to earn salvation, but because they love Jesus. They'll keep the Sabbath even if they cannot buy or sell, or even if they are threatened with death. Your question, will you be one of them? I hope so. The Bible pictures this victorious group. And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. This is evidently a scene from heaven. I want you to imagine yourself here in this group, because you can be there if you will choose to fulfill the conditions God has outlined in His Word. It says here in Revelation chapter 15 verse 2, here we have the saints in heaven. Will you be in that group, victorious over the beast and his mark? I hope so. Today we still have the freedom to choose to obey God and keep His day holy. And the best thing to do is to make the choice now. Which day I will keep holy? Which will you receive? The seal of God, the Sabbath, or the mark of the beast, Sunday? Who will you obey? God's commandments or man's, Rome's commandments? Remember, the day you keep holy indicates who you are obeying. Jesus says, if you love me, keep my commandments. I want to keep those commandments, don't you? Out of love for Jesus. Friends, in this video, I am going to invite you to make a decision. Make a decision today to follow Jesus.
I will follow Thee, my Savior, wheresoe'er my lot may be. Where Thou goest, I will follow. Yes, my Lord, I'll follow Thee. I will follow Thee, my Savior. Thou didst shed Thy blood for me, and though all men should forsake Thee, by Thy grace I'll follow Thee. boundless as the foaming sea. Thou hast trod this way before me, and I'll gladly follow thee, and I will follow thee, my Savior. Thou didst shed thy blood for me, and though all men should forsake thee, by thy grace I'll follow thee, and I'll be whiter than snow, yes, whiter than snow. Lord, wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Though I meet with tribulations, sorely tempted though I be, I remember that thou wast tempted, and rejoice to follow thee, and I will follow thee, my Savior. Thou didst shed thy blood for me, and though all men should forsake thee, by thy grace I'll follow thee, and though all men should forsake thee, by thy grace